highlight of your year. Beginning of this year, I made a decision and I set an intention to have a year of joy. I really wanted to look back at this year, January to December, and to have an overwhelming sense of like, oh, it was such a good year. There was so much joy and so much happiness, smiles, and laughter in it. And I'm safe to say that I have safely accomplished this amongst all the chaos that is ever present in my lifestyle. I love ending the year sharing some of the life lessons that I have learned along the way. I am in the process of writing a book, and I have discovered that this act every year of recording and writing down my life lessons, the challenges, the growth that I have made, has been so powerful in setting the trajectory of where my life goes and the changes that I've been making in the subsequent year to set me on a closer track to the life that I want. So as we wrap up the year of 2024, I wanted to share the 3 key life lessons that I have learned this particular year. The first lesson is that I can decide, I can make decisions. And when I don't, if I'm sitting on the fence, I'm procrastinating on something, that in itself is a decision, because the decision is made by somebody else. A really good example of that, well, what could have been if I hadn't have done that, is beginning of this year, I made the decision to move from Girona, where I've been based for the past 6 years or so, to Mallorca, which is an island off the mainland of Spain. Well, for some people who were there at the time that I made the actual clear-cut decision, it would have come across as being quite abrupt and seemingly without warning. However, they didn't perhaps see the 6 months of me thinking about it and the deliberations and the umming and ahhing and sitting on the fence that I'd been doing up until that point. And I guess for me, the catalyst was I was in Adelaide for Tour Down Under, and I was riding along the bike path down to meet some friends to go for a bike ride. I'd had a viewing of this property to rent in Palma, Mallorca, and I was sort of thinking about it. Should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I? Because I didn't need to move, but yeah, it was certainly playing on my heart about like, oh, maybe I could, maybe I should. And I was listening to this podcast. It's about ADHD, it's about procrastination and decision making, and how a lot of people with ADHD can struggle with decision making and can struggle with procrastination, follow through, that sort of stuff. And this podcast was saying how when we don't make a decision, when we're sitting on the fence, the decision is made for us by someone else, usually because we miss the opportunity. The opportunity passes us by. And there's times when we do want to make a decision, and there's times then when the answer for that decision should be yes. And there'll be times when opportunity passes and it'll come and the correct answer for us to be no. Only we are going to be able to determine if that is right or wrong as a decision. And the same thing, there's rarely a situation where it's a morally right or wrong decision. For example, me moving to Mallorca, it wasn't like I had to move, my lease wasn't ending, I wasn't being kicked out. There was just something sort of perhaps like a little string calling me to move across. When I was, I guess, in that moment of like, oh, do I, don't I, do I, don't I like to think about the future and where that decision, how that outcome is going to play out in the months, years, however, coming ahead. Because one thought I had was, okay, well, I could stay in Girona, keep everything as it is, nothing sort of changes. And then in 6-12 months time, I might be like, cool, yep, I'm happy in Girona. Or I could be 6 months, 12 months time, be like, we should have moved then. That was my moment. The other thing I was thinking is like, I could move to Mallorca and 6-12 months later, I'm like, don't really don't want to be here. Or I could move to Mallorca and 6-12 months later be like, that was the best decision I've ever made. I'm so glad I went. And thinking about all these different options, knowing that there was neither right nor wrong, I made the decision overnight, seemingly, to move to Mallorca and to say yes to that apartment. And hands down, I can attest that it was the best decision. I'm so happy. I'm so glad that I did make that move. Obviously, life isn't perfect. There's no such thing as perfect, but I feel so aligned. And it's funny the number of people and friends that have commented on how happy that I seem, because even though there has been struggles this year, like all years, overwhelmingly my view and look back over this year has been that happiness and that joy, and be like, oh, I love life. I love my life. I'm so happy and aligned with who I am and where I want to be. And that has really all come back down to taking a decision and being okay with waiting for the feedback that comes with the action step that decision creates. The second life lesson that has really hit home with me this year was a concept about having a sabbatical lifestyle rather than wishing for retirement or wishing for the year or the month or whatever of sabbatical that you just switch off from the world. I was talking to an old counselor of mine and about how I like having a lot of space in my life. I don't like being too busy. I don't like being overcommitted. I like having space where I can either add things on or take it out depending on where I'm at or what's going on in my world. And she was saying was like, essentially it's like having a sabbatical lifestyle and creating space in the rhythms that you have on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And I really, really clicked with that. It really hit home because I find that having that space gives me time to listen to my intuition, time to get clear on what I think and what I want, because I found that I often listen to other people's voices before I listen to me. So someone else says, you should do this, you should do that. And be like, oh, okay, yep, go, and you go and do it. Rather than being like, actually, that's not really what I want to do. I found that by having space, reflective writing, journaling every day, reading, praying, all these things, like creating lots of space in my day, my week, these rhythms, I'm much more likely to be able to tune into what I want to do and what I feel called to and drawn to do. An area that I am challenging myself for 2025 on this is in relation to cycling and to exercise, funny enough, because what I realized is that I would plan to go for a bike ride. I'd have this designated space in my day to exercise. And then a client would be like, oh, I really want to see you then. Like, that's the only time I can do. And I would say yes to them and no to me, which meant that sometimes it'd be weeks, days, if not weeks, where I hadn't been for a bike ride, even though I'd planned to, because I kept not following through on the actions that I wanted to do and listening to what I needed to do. And so I guess a change that I'm planning and looking to make in 2025 is creating more space for exercise and for movement, things that give me joy and also give me more energy. Because actually, when I've exercised more, when I've had more of that physical space, I have more energy to give to my clients, and then I'm more productive and I'm able to help and serve them better, which is something that I'm very passionate about. Final lesson for 2024 for me is more of a personal one, and it was to let my hopes, not my hurts, dictate and guide my future. Because anyone that's within my inner circle knows when it comes to personal relationships, it's been a little bit of a bumpy ride over the past 10, 15 years or so. Long story short, I used to be married. My ex-husband had an affair, kicked me out of home. There was a lot of drama. There's been a lot of healing and processing and stuff to get over, and it honestly has taken me the best part of 10 years to really process, get over that, and to start being in a position where I'm even open really to meeting men or being open to a future relationship with a man in some point down in the future. Part of this journey for me was, I guess, reclaiming lands where joy was stolen from me. Mallorca was one of them, and Peru was another. So early this year, I took the first proper holiday in a while, and I went back to Peru where this all, I guess, started, and I did some of the things that I had wanted to do that I didn't get the chance or opportunity to do then. I did some cooking classes. I did a different hike to Machu Picchu and created space to close that chapter of my life. The hike was definitely a key part of my healing process, but you'll have to wait for my book to learn a little bit more about that. And I'm not going to lie, that was a very shitty part of my life that I would not wish upon anybody else. However, I honestly don't think that I would be who I am, where I am now, if I hadn't gone through all that crap, essentially, because I wasn't living in alignment with myself. I wasn't living a life that was true to me. I was living a life guided by other people, other people's thoughts. And I knew that it wasn't right for me. I was ignoring myself. And that catastrophe was a catalyst for me in getting clear on what I actually did want in my life and starting to take the first steps. Baby steps, baby steps. Like, I would never have dreamed that I'd be doing what I am doing now, where I'd be now back then. Like, it's so different to where I thought my life was going to be going, but I'm so glad now that I am where I am. And if that meant that I had to go through all that pain and all that challenging stuff in order to grow and become the version of myself to be where I am now, then I'm glad that it happened. No desire to repeat that again, or no desire for anyone else to have to go through it, but it's certainly been a learning experience and something that I'm grateful for the growth that I've created as a result of it. A key thing that I have then been challenged this year as I've been starting to date and starting to meet men and thinking about getting into a new relationship is not getting stuck in fear and not letting the past to trap you or to keep you stuck or steal your future. I think that was the key thing that sat with me really well. I was allowing the past to get me stuck in fear, letting my hope and viewing the positive rather than getting stuck in the negative. That has just been something that I've really grasped and held on to as I start moving forward when it comes to my personal life. Overall, this has been a year of joy, a year of getting better aligned and taking action steps that are in a direction closer to what I want for now and for the future. I hope you have enjoyed this. That's all for today. Like, subscribe, feel you're right, and I'll see you next time.